So this is my first actual movie review, and I've been going over this in my head because I felt this was such a good movie and it has such potential, but then it just fell short. And it is a movie I would recommend, and it's called The Woman in Black. And I am a horror fan aficionado. I love to watch horror movies, and I've seen so many horror movies. And this one had all the perfect elements of a horror movie. And just a warning, this is going to be full of spoilers. I don't care about spoilers. I'm going to talk about the movie. Um, but it's about a lawyer who comes to, a small town in England, turn of the century, turn of last century anyway. And I feel a lot of horror movies are going to go in this direction because nowadays, it's hard to come up with an excuse why cell phones don't work, why the camera's not working. I think a lot more horror movies are going to be set in the past just to avoid coming up with explanations like that. But this movie, the best part about this movie was the setting, and I just love the setting. Um, it takes place in a place called Eel Marsh House, and this is a house on a tidal flat. There's a road that goes to it, and every night the tide comes in, so the road's covered. You can't get to it. And then on either side of the road is marsh and mud, and it's tidal mud, so it's all just this watery mud. And that's the main one of the main points in the movie. The ghost is the mother of a child who drowned in this marsh. And this is where the setting. I mean, the setting is just so perfect because you got this old house, but and you don't. It's really hard to follow the movie, and it's really hard to get some of the gist of it. But there were two sisters, and one sister had the child and was deemed unfit to raise the child and was put into a mental institution. The other sister raised the child as her own. So this boy, who was like 9, 10 years old when he died, just always thought this was her mother. This was his mother. And there was an accident in the marsh where the mother was driving. And at first, they don't make it clear. It makes it sound like there was a man involved, but it wasn't. It was the mother. The wagon went off the road, and the son drowned in the wagon on the tidal flat, and the mother made it back to the road. And when the ghost is haunting the house, this is what the solicitor finds. He finds signs in the house, things like you could have saved him, or you didn't try, or you saved yourself instead of the boy. And I mean, this is the perfect setting for a ghost. This is a perfect thing that would make a ghost. This woman who had to watch her sister raise her own son as her own, and then not love him enough to save him, or in the eyes of the ghost, not love him enough to save him. When the time came. So the woman and another setting was like where the wagon went off the road was a cross, and they don't make that clear that that's what the cross is for until later in the movie. But there's a cross in the tidal marsh, and a question if this is like all watery mud. I don't know what's holding the cross up, but anyway, there's a cross out in the mud, and a lot of people don't grasp the symbolism of the mother sitting in the child's bedroom. And this is what the solicitor did. He looks out the window, and right there's the cross. The cross is like boom right there looking out the window. And you can imagine this drove this woman crazy, just knowing that her child is right there under that cross, still in the wagon, and his body's right there, and no one could recover it. And that was another thing in the movie. They made a big deal about that no one could recover this child because this muck is so mucky, and you just can't walk out into this muck. So anyway, she goes crazy and hangs herself and becomes the ghost. Now the town people know this, and the townspeople say, that whenever the woman in black is spotted, they know a child will die because she wants revenge for losing her own child. And this is where it kind of took me out of the movie because I hate people who act totally irrational. So when the solicitor arrives, and his job was to arrive to facilitate the sale of the house. So first of all, this raises two questions. If the townspeople know that there's a ghost, and if you see the ghost, people will die. Why didn't they just burn the house down and dig the road up? It would have been generations before anyone ever got out to this island again, because you can't drive across it, you can't take a boat across it. You would have to wait till the invention of the helicopter to get out to this thing. But, the house still exists, the road still exists, and all the town people know the legend. If, you see the woman in black, a child will die. But do they tell the solicitor this? No. And there's no logical reason not to tell him. So when he arrives and, they all know he's coming and they all know he's supposed to sort out this house, they just shun him. They all hate him. They shut their doors. They don't welcome him. They claim there's no rooms in the hotel and stuff. And that irrationality just totally takes me out of the movie. And they must know about the ghosts because well, they explain later that they did, but some people went so far, the solicitor that's in the town went so far as to lock his daughter in the basement because he knew this guy was coming. There was a good chance he was going to see the ghost, so he locked her up so there was no way she could kill herself. And that's what the ghost did. The ghost caused children to kill themselves. They, it wasn't like a freak accident or something. They actually did something. In the movie, one girl swallows lye and, her inside boils out. And 3 girls jump from a high window. And anyway, they kill themselves. And, rather than just tell him about this, because he goes to the solicitor, and the solicitor has all the papers right there. He says, there's no need to go to the house. He tries to prevent him from going. He says, right here's all the papers. Don't go to the house, and the solicitor's all like, I'm going to go to the house anyway. And, that's my job. I was told I'd get fired if I didn't go to this house. So, just tell the guy. The other illogical thing is, once he finds out about the ghost, his son was supposed to come up and visit him too in the countryside. Now, there's this backstory where his wife died and he's raising the son by himself, and he's got a nanny raising the son, and she's bringing him up to visit him while he's in this country setting as kind of a vacation or something. And at no point does he fear for the life of his son. His attitude is, I will get rid of the ghost before my son gets here. And if the protagonist of the story isn't scared of the ghost, that doesn't give the audience any reason to be scared of the ghost. And I love the setting. I love the idea of how the ghost came to be and what the ghost does. But just having the main character just be like, no, I know how to get rid of the ghost. And the other thing that took me out is there's a word for it. I can't remember. And I think it's called, dual machina or something. But, he didn't figure everything out himself. And what happened was there's a side character whose only purpose of this character was to be possessed by a child ghost and to tell him, fill in the holes for him. So that he figures out, if we dig this body up out of the marsh and lay it to rest, maybe the woman in black will be laid to rest. And, the one guy in town that would listen to him was like, well, no one's ever been able to recover the body. And he's like, yeah, but now we have automobiles. And this guy drives a Rolls Royce Silver Ghost, and they take this out to the marsh and they hook it up to the wagon and pull the wagon out, and they recover the boy's body, lay him to rest with his mom. But it didn't work. She still wanted revenge for the death of her son. But at no point, he just was like all cocky and like, okay, this is how we get rid of the ghost. And if you have a ghost story, you want to be scared a little bit. You want to learn this along with him. And I think a beautiful way to do this was just have the people of the town not know about the ghost. They know children die mysteriously, but they don't know why. And let this guy figure it out. Let him panic for his son. Let him call his son and say, don't come. And a beautiful way to do that, because he talked about sending telegrams, he could have sent the telegram, and the nanny could have never gotten the telegram, so his son arrives anyway. And that would have brought tension and scariness to the movie, but they didn't do this. but just to have the town people know what's going on, but shun him and not tell him, just to have a ghost come up and explain everything to him. I mean, it just, that took me out of the movie. But I would recommend this movie solely for the setting, the cinematography, uh, the ending. I kind of saw the ending coming, not from far away, but like as they got approached the end of the movie, I kind of saw that coming. Uh, but the cinematography, the old trains, the Eel Marsh itself, Eel Marsh house, just the way they had it set up on this island and this old road and the whole setup for the ghost was just beautifully done. But I think the movie just fell apart with some of the writing and some of the acting. And I don't have anything against the actors. Daniel Radcliffe is, he's known for Harry Potter, but he was wonderful in this, and I think he was acting according to the script. But the script should have made him worry about his son and try to prevent his son from coming, because it just him knowing that this ghost killed children and his son was coming. Any father, I'm a father, and I would have done everything in my power to prevent my son to come there. And then this brings us to Woman in Black 2, Angel of Death, and they kind of pick up in World War II, the early stages of World War II, and there was the London Blitz, and they would evacuate children out into the countryside, and so this house was one of the evacuation points. And again, they discover a recording that just tells them what's going on. And to me, that's like a cop-out. I just hate that. In fact, Pixar has rules for movies, and one of their rules is, don't do this. And that's exactly what these movies do, is they have some device that tells the characters what's going on. And the Pixar says, because they lay out so many rules of beautiful storytelling, as we all know, Pixar makes these gorgeous movies that really capture your heart. And one of their rules is don't have luck, or don't have, someone tell the character what's going on. They need to figure out what's going on themselves. And that didn't happen in either of these movies. They were both spoon-fed what was going on, and could have been a better way of handling it. The second movie, I mean, because of the first movie, you know what's going on. And in the second movie, they deal more with knowing that, this woman saw her son die, and knowing that her son will never know that she was his real mom, and not just the crazy aunt. And it takes place in World War II, and there's a pilot who redeems himself, and I don't know, the main, this had a heroine, and of course, you got a whole group of children going to stay at the house, and knowing that the ghost kills children, you just know, you look at all the kids and go, okay, which ones are going to live and which ones are going to die. And they delve into her past a little bit, and I felt that was kind of contrived. They don't need to give people horrible pasts and then not have it have anything to do with the movie. So yeah, there's a ghost, and it's about these adults trying to protect the kids while they're figuring out the ghost. And there wasn't a town here. When they got, at this point in time, the town is gone. So when they get to this old country house, to them it's just an old country house. So yeah, they had to figure out what was going on, and yeah, it was spoon-fed to them, because they found an actual recording that just told them what was going on, and that spoiled it for me. But again, Eel Marsh House, this was the house further in the future, 50, 60 years further in the future, so like all the pictures were gone off the wall. You can tell it was the same house, but in a greater state of decay, which was kind of cool to see that, they didn't try to keep the house exactly the same. It was literally falling apart for the second movie. And, with all the townspeople gone, but there was one crazy blind guy, and that didn't make sense either, because he said he didn't die because he was blind and couldn't see the ghost. But the ghost only killed children, so it kind of didn't make sense. It kind of went against, when you have an internal story in your in your in your movie, be consistent with that internal story. So to have a blind adult say he wasn't killed because he was blind, he wouldn't have been killed. A child would have been killed if he saw the ghost. So it didn't fit the mythology of the story. Um, the second part, the heroine, just gorgeous, by the way, and I just fell in love with her, but that's beside the point. But it's like when you do part two to a ghost story and you already know why the ghost is there, I think that takes away some of the mystery. And I love the mystery more than being horrified. And I love that another thing about both the movies was that there was no real gory parts. I mean, yeah, the kids killed themselves in horrific ways, but it wasn't like a slash flesh. You didn't see entrails coming out of them or anything. Some of the deaths took place off screen, and you just knew that they had died. So the second one, I don't know. It wasn't, to me, it was just, I don't even know how to explain it. It just wasn't moody. It wasn't like the first one. It didn't have these gorgeous settings. Even though it was the same Eel Marsh house, and the cross is still out there on the swamp, and it's the same setting, it was just brighter and less scary. And I think part of that was because you knew what was going on, and part of it was because they made it less scary. There wasn't any mystery in the house anymore. But the first one, definitely the cinematography, the house itself. I fell in love with the house. I actually Googled it, and it's this gorgeous English manor. It's not really on a title marsh, but just the way they filmed it, and you could just feel when you go inside that, yeah, this is what a house would be like if it had been empty for 10 years, And, it's just, that's why I would recommend this movie. But of course, I'd probably spoil it all for you now. But, just seeing, it could have been better. It really could have been better. And so I made this review. This is my first movie review, and I made this because I kept going over this in my head, like, God, this was such a good movie if they had just did something better with the townsfolk, and if they had just had him, because it would have been so much nicer if he figured out that, yeah, here's the ghost, now a child dies. There's the ghost, child dies. Oh, one must follow the other. And but they instead have a possessed person go, oh, this is why the children are dying. That, to me, that's just unnecessary. That's, you should never have someone just being taken out of their story and told what to do. They need to figure it out on their own. And I guess I'll wrap it up. I did like number 2 because, well, I like the character. But again, the old blind man didn't make any sense whatsoever. That could have been handled differently. But at least there weren't town folks shunning these people. There was a bus driver who seemed to know that there was danger, but he's just like, oh yeah, okay, these people are going to be in danger from this ghost, and I'm just going to take off. And again, people acting irrational in a horror story. Just, there are ways to make a horror story without all this being irrational and having it handed to you. And maybe I'll review some of those later, because I have seen some really good horror stories. I've seen some really, really bad horror stories. But I think I'll wrap it up there, and I just want to let you know that, yeah, go see it, but go see it if you're into the mood, and if you're into, because there's no jump scares. The first movie didn't have any jump scares. The second movie had a few jump scares. Again, I think that's kind of cheap, but first movie, no. And it's a good story. If you like mysteries and unraveling mysteries, and how they go about it, and how the character follows this, and that's one thing I made sure in my writing is I never have something handed to the character. The character's got to dig for it themselves, and
when I see that, that just takes me out. I think that's why Pixar made it a rule that they can't do that in their movies. But enough said about that. My name's Starthinker, and have a good day.